Let me first of all welcome you all to the Renewable Energy and Remote and Indigenous Communities Symposium this morning. My name is Gary Morasti. I'm going to do my best. Doesn't mean it'll be good, but I'll do my best to be your MC today and try and keep things going as smoothly as possible. Now, this symposium, of course, is hosted by the U of S and Saskatchewan Polytechnique, and we've got some sponsors and some other partners that I'll mention in a few minutes as well, but very honored that to be invited and help out today. Glad that something like this is happening in our province. We're seeing some exciting things happening across the country, certainly around the world, and in particular in the Northern Hemisphere and the circumpolar regions and having been involved a bit in reading and following what's been happening, it's quite exciting to see some of the developments out there. So we're eager to hear a lot of what will be shared today and look forward to it. Of course, we're in the Treaty 6 territory here on these lands, also the homeland of the Métis Nation. Very honored to be here and acknowledge the traditional landowners for their hospitality, their ongoing hospitality and support. As you may know, or some of you may know, I'm from the Peter Ballantyne Cree Nation, and my home community is actually Pelican Arrows, and my friends and family and community is actually in the midst of an evacuation right now. They're in Saskatoon and PA. A couple thousand people have been evacuated due to a forest fire threat, actually several of them coming from all over. Last time I saw that, I was actually 15 years old and I got recruited. I wasn't supposed to be recruited by Natural Resources to fire, but I didn't want to tell them I was only 15 because it was good money. So we were actually on the outskirts of town, just on the north side of town. There's a high ground there. There's actually a tower there for back then for our TV. And I remember standing there in awe. And the fire was a couple kilometers away, but you could feel the heat. Like, it was so hot, you had to turn away from it. If you had exposed skin, you could feel the heat. And this forest fire, it preheats the forest in front of it. And you could see it as the wind changed direction. This fire was moving at a pretty decent pace, like a few kilometers an hour. All of a sudden, the wind gusted up, and the fire was like a living organism, and it moved to the top of the trees, and it started rolling. And we're there watching, and then it got to the top of the trees, and then the wind changed again, and it went, we swear, about 30 kilometers an hour, just rolling at the top of the trees. I got sent a video a few nights ago from that same spot where that fire was coming in again. So, 1980 to today, was that 30 some years ago? I'm old. But yeah, it brought back a lot of memories and how scary and how life-threatening these fires can be. So our prayers, of course, to the firefighters out there that are bravely battling the fire. I know they're still recruiting people right now and taking them to the front lines. They're trying to protect the community. So our thoughts and prayers to the families and everybody that has been affected by the fire. To start off with here, I would love to invite Tribal Chief Felix to come up and provide us some greetings and some welcoming remarks. I saw Tribal Chief a few minutes ago, and just to welcome us to the territory. And Felix and I have known each other for quite a few years. Not sure he likes me that much, but he still calls me once in a while, and we hang out and have coffee and have breakfast at the Parktown Hotel now and then. So, Tribal Chief.
Thanks, Gary. Gary just gave away my age as well. So we're all in the same boat, and one of the things I want to thank Gary and University for inviting me, and for you that don't know, I'm not only the Tribal Chief of the Saskatoon Tribal Council, and welcome to Treaty 6 territory, and one of the other hats I have is Chairman of First Nation Power Authority. And one of the things that this is comes at a good time, because not only are we working on a power project here in Saskatoon, but as a First Nations Power Authority hat, that's one of the things that we did some work up in Black Lake on solar panels, but one of the things that we always worry about is how do we get the remoteness and the rural infrastructure and making sure that they're looked after. Because in the cities, we take it for granted that we always have power, we have backup power. We could always go to Canadian Tire and get a generator. But it's different in the north and much different in our northern communities, our First Nations and Métis communities. So those are some of the things that symposiums such as this start to engage that discussion as to what can we do and how can people, there can be inclusion and opportunities for our northern First Nations and Aboriginal people as well. So with that, I won't say too much, but I'll be talking to you and moderating this afternoon. And thank you for the invite, and I'm sure we're going to have a great session. Thank you.
Thanks, Tribal Chief Felix. Chief Felix has been Tribal Chief for quite a number of years, and the innovation and achievements that he's been a part of have been deep and wide. And so a big thank you to Chief Felix for his leadership over the years and hopefully continued leadership into the future. Also, of course, want to acknowledge a few other guests that we have with us this morning. Of course, we just met Tribal Chief Felix of the Saskatoon Tribal Council. Mayor Rick Richardson is here, a friend of mine from a ways back. I think we met each other in 2004, 2005, and his wife Rose. Thanks for joining us today. We also have Mayor Clay Copeland from Cordova, Alaska. Huge welcome. Thanks for joining us here, and hope your travels were smooth and the airlines were fair. Just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. Our event today is being live streamed and of course recorded because of that. And in order for those who are watching from afar, we ask that if you do have questions, there's a microphone in the middle there so that they can hear. If you could speak into that, that would be great. We ask that all audience members be asked from the mic. I just said that. I'm just reading that again. Thank you for your cooperation. A few things in case of an emergency. Coming from a bit of a mining industrial background, emergency exit straight out the back in case of an emergency out the back, and then maybe a mustering point could be right by where those radio stations are doing the orientation, just on this side. So the other very important thing are washrooms. They're immediately out, and I think they're both to the left as well. And of course, if you'd like to, and we do encourage you, take part on social media today. Today's event's hashtag is Renew Energy USask. Hashtag Renew Energy USask. So take part in the conversation today. We'd certainly encourage that, and thank you. Before I introduce our one of our next speakers, just wanted to share a bit. As I mentioned, I grew up in Pelican Arrows, and I'm a little older. I remember our community ran on diesel, on a diesel generator for quite a number of years. And it was normal for us to, once in a while, it would just give out. And we'd go for hours, we'd get the candles and all that kind of stuff. And we would, I remember we didn't have running water as well. So I'd have 2 5-gallon pails. My aunt and uncle who raised me would say, okay, time for you to get some water. We need a refresh. So I'd walk up the hill over to where the well was and get some water. And that's where the diesel generator was. And I remember the smell of the diesel. I remember the purple kind of streamy stuff of flow, coming from the diesel generator and all that. And then, if it would go out, I can't remember his name, but I remember his last name was Charles. He was the one that was responsible for keeping the power on and keeping that generator going. It was quite interesting in that, as a community, energy access, energy security for a community, for quality of life is so important, and you don't realize that until you've kind of gone through the full spectrum of that transition. And I've kind of lived through that. And so really today, we're seeing another step, not just the access to, carbon-based perhaps energy, but now we're talking about renewable energy and deploying it perhaps where northern communities are owning. They're in an ownership position. They're seeing revenues potentially. They're seeing employment. The fourth industrial revolution is upon us, and one of the biggest things about this revolution than the previous three is how disruptive potentially this is going to be. And those who have the means and the education and the connections can ride the wave of that, but one of the biggest disruptors of it is that those who don't have the means, the education, get further left behind and marginalized. And I see this discussion of renewable energy in remote and Indigenous communities as almost being a bit of a gateway and an opportunity to participate in that. It exposes us to new technologies, to training people for the renewable energy sector, technicians and professionals and engineers that can help participate, that help spark others in our community to be innovative and be creative. And so for me, this is a bit of a passionate issue because I do worry about how disruptive the fourth industrial revolution is going to be for all of us, and in particular for our Indigenous communities. Before I call up our next speaker, I do want to call up a person that I've idolized all my life. He was a chief of our community for a number of years. He was an executive member of the Prince Albert Grand Council. He's been a respected member of our community, an elder who provides guidance, not just to his home community of the Peter Ballantyne Cree Nation, but to many others. And so I'd like to call up Elder Phil Morin to get us off on a good way and offer us an opening prayer. So, Phil?
Tansi. Can everybody say Tansi? Okay. My wife woke me up at 5 o'clock this morning. I live in Prince Albert right now. She said, get up, you got to go to the university. I said, no, I can't get up, I'm too tired. I golfed all weekend. But I've heard that for the last 55 years. We just celebrated our anniversary a couple of days ago. So I'm glad she woke me up, but I'm very happy to be here to join you, join Gary. And I too would like to welcome you to Treaty 6. Actually, where I come from, we're partly in Treaty 10, and we're in Treaty 5. But we add east to Treaty 6. We're so far up north in the northeast that in the late 1800s, the commissioner couldn't make it down there, because the travel was too tough. Like you had to travel on a river, on a lake, by canoe for days and days. And the mosquitoes were terrible, he said. So, but anyway, we are still there. Gary mentioned a little bit about Pelican Arrows, but we have several communities within the Peter Ballantyne Cree Nation. 8 for sure anyway, and a few other smaller ones. And we're actually the largest, one of the largest First Nations in Saskatchewan, maybe in Western Canada. There's 11,000 Woodland Cree. We speak the Woodland Cree language as opposed to the Plains language here where we live, but we understand each other. I grew up in one of those Ballantyne reserves called South End Reindeer Lake. It's about, those of you that live here in Saskatchewan that drove to Reindeer Lake, you'd have to drive at least 6 hours. If the roads are bad, 8 hours. But it's a beautiful region. It's a huge lake. It's over 150 miles long and 40 miles wide, and it's full of lake trout. So you guys go there and fish for lake trout this fall. In 2 weeks' time, they'll be spawning, and you can catch them left and right. So I think I kind of gave up my age too. You know, I said I was married for 55 years. I wasn't married when I was 10 years old or anything like that. But in 1937, and I was born in 1937, and in around 1940, the developments, energy development started right at the south end of Reindeer Lake. A place called White Sand on the Reindeer River. And I remember, I would have been about 4 or 5 years old, but I remember the developments in there. The blasting that was done. Like we were only about a half mile away and I could see the rocks flying, and I liked that noise, you know. And I asked my grandpa, what's going on? Oh, he said, they're going to build a dam right here. And someplace down the river, they're going to put electricity. They're going to make electricity. The name for electricity in Cree is, one of the names we use is Iskoteo. Can you say Iskoteo? Iskoteo. That means power. There's other names for it too. But I didn't understand what was going on. I said, oh, we're going to have lots of power somewhere. Gary mentioned about the energy that they used for lighting in his day. Mine was coal oil. That was good stuff. And candles. But my grandpa liked bear grease. You know, that made a really good light. And you could eat bear fat too. It's very, very good food. So I have seen a lot of developments, not only in the northern part of Saskatchewan, but in other parts of Canada and the United States, in China, New Zealand, England, and I've observed various kinds of developments. And I have seen this beautiful country of Canada. Like I have from coast to coast, and the people that I work with, that I've worked with, both from the First Nation community and non-First Nations people, we all strive to achieve the same goals. In the 1970s, I had the opportunity to talk to people that were involved in the uranium industry. And we talked about the opportunities that were there, and we talked about plants. Up to that time, we only had about 5 people that had university degrees at that period. So we said that we had to build schools. We hadn't had any high schools up to that time. And we agreed that we have to build schools. We have to get our kids to go to university. And 40, 50 years later, we got hundreds. Peter Ballantyne's got hundreds of people at the universities. We built high schools. We have a staff of about 300, and the majority of them are from the north. And more of our people are going to advanced education in various fields. So we made considerable progress in here in Saskatchewan. Sometimes we fight, you know, that's okay too. We fight with the government and we fight with our friends. We fight internally, you know, to try to get the best possible developments. But I think if you look around here in Saskatchewan, we have made a lot of progress, but we still have a long way to go. We still have a lot of unemployment in our communities. And in the north, we're always looking for jobs. Our people have a very strong history of working. If Sask Power wants a line cut in the middle of winter, we could have 20, 30, 40, 50 people living in tents and working in 40 below weather and doing the job. And these young people come back and say, are there any more jobs like that? And we say, possibly in the future, possibly other jobs related to energy. So they like that. They like to work, and they like to make money, of course, and they like to travel. I myself had to leave the community a few years back, so my kids could go to school. I didn't go to university myself, but my wife said our kids got to go to university, so they went to Winnipeg, they went to Regina, they came here to University of Saskatchewan and did very well for themselves with the help of people and with the help of Gary and other people in the community. We encourage our kids, many other kids, to go to university, and we still do. And that's our goal, is to provide the best possible education for our children. But I don't want to really spend too much time talking about Peter Valentine at this time, but we'll do that later on. What I would like to do is offer a prayer in Cree for you and for your families, for the communities, and for the world, so that we can live in peace, so that we can work together in peace for the future of our children. Because if we don't do that, it's going to be very, very tough to make any kind of progress here in our country and elsewhere. So with that, I will, and you can say your prayers in your own language, in your own belief. And with that, I'll take my golf cap off and say the prayer in Cree. Namay tawinan. Kinaskumitnan. Mina piawa kisagaw imidiak. Miraya sawe mekakido. Muto napio goisku agayatsik. Sawe de making charge misnanak. Sawe de make unigani yok. Ogamao in hikuto che. Mutamina taskinan. Wichinan. Questa mama tuscata makiwe. Questa ispadigotis nigan. Charge misna nagoche. You could say, Ismami Shirutat Nan Liman Tom. Amen. Okay? That's it.
Tinigi Phil Tatamskaten Goiska, Epiamista Moyagan Otsagisipa, and Naskumun Goisk. Thank you very much, Phil, for your comments and your opening prayer. Now I'd like to invite Irina Creed, Executive Director with the School of Environment and Sustainability, to come up and say a few words. Irina?
Well, good morning and welcome to our symposium. I'm incredibly pleased to have recently joined the School of Environment and Sustainability and to welcome you all here today. As we gather, I too would like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis. We pay our respect to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of our gathering place and reaffirm our relationship with each other. On behalf of the University of Saskatchewan and Sask Polytech, I would like to extend a warm welcome to our guests who have traveled great distances to attend this week's events. We have guests from outside Canada, Norway, Finland, and Alaska, from northern Canada, Inuvik, Whitehorse, and Yellowknife, and from Saskatchewan, Green Lake, Pine House, and many others. As you know, we also have guests from Pelican Narrows, and I too would like to acknowledge that evacuation of the community there due to the forest fires in the north. Our thoughts and prayers are with your community and for your safe return home. The world is undergoing one of the most significant transitions since the Industrial Revolution. The global energy transition from fossil fuels to renewable sources will reshape economies and societies in the same way that oil and the internal combustion engine did less than 150 years ago. This energy transition has the potential to leave many Indigenous, rural, and northern communities behind in its wake, as centralized electrical grids often do not reach these communities, leaving them with a reliance on fossil fuels. However, the energy transition also holds the promise to dramatically improve the lives of Indigenous and rural residents. If done correctly, the global transition to renewables has the potential to improve energy access and security for Indigenous and rural residents, to provide new and unprecedented economic opportunities for northern and remote communities, and to renew Indigenous relations. We have the opportunity to strengthen the very foundations of the treaty relationship between First Canadian and newcomer societies through mutually beneficial renewable energy projects that are built in partnership. These efforts will require us to work together across sectors from industry, government, universities, colleges, and utilities. Most importantly, it will require us to work in partnership with the Indigenous, remote, and rural communities of the North. We are so pleased that representatives from these sectors have come together to work together on solutions that will improve the lives and economic foundations for all of us. I got goosebumps. These are very exciting times. On behalf of the University of Saskatchewan and Sask Polytech, along with our fellow institutions, Arctic Institute of North America, UBC Okanagan, Yukon College, Aurora College, University of Alaska Fairbanks and Anchorage, the Arctic University of Norway, and VTT Finland, we commit to you today that we will do our part. We will work with you through basic and applied research and through training and education that contributes to providing the solutions that communities, industry, and utilities seek. We cannot and will not take this commitment lightly. There is too much at stake, and the opportunities for our societies and communities are too great to forego. None of this would be possible without the support of the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council, the United States Consulate for Alberta, Saskatchewan, and the Northwest Territories, and Sask Power. I would like to thank the visionary leadership of Mike Marsh, CEO of Sask Power, who immediately saw the value of this initiative. We are thrilled to host such a talented group of speakers on such a vitally important topics, and we hope this public forum will both inform and inspire our collective work ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Irina. I'd like now to call up Lori Carr, member of the Legislative Assembly for Estevan, to bring greetings on behalf of the province. Welcome, Lori.
Well, good morning, everybody. I guess before I begin today, the province of Saskatchewan would also like to extend a big welcome, in particular to the guests joining us from Pelican Narrows, and to acknowledge the evacuation that community is facing due to those wildfires. Our thoughts and prayers go out to you and your community, and I pray for a safe and speedy return, because I know it's hard being away with your family in different communities, so I just look forward to you going back home. On behalf of the province of Saskatchewan and the minister responsible for Sask Power, the Honourable Dustin Duncan, I would like to commend the University of Saskatchewan, Sask Polytechnic, and their international and Canadian partners here today for initiating a much-needed consortium in the field of renewable energy in remote and Indigenous communities. The minister would also like to commend Sask Power for stepping forward with the seed money for this initiative. As you all know, the province of Saskatchewan has set an ambitious goal to be 50% renewable by 2030. To meet this challenge will require innovative partnerships among Indigenous communities, industry, and utilities, and of course, our research and teaching institutions to boldly meet the challenges of the global energy transition. These challenges provide enormous opportunities if we have the imagination and the courage to seize them. Northern Saskatchewan and our partners across the cold climate regions of the Northern Hemisphere will need to build effective policies, strengthen community engagement, and advance technology solutions. Energy security in remote and Indigenous communities is critical to building healthy and vibrant communities, organizations, and businesses. As you've heard from some of the stories here already today, energy is vital. Investment in renewable energy in Saskatchewan will have wide-ranging positive impact through economic growth and improved access to energy at a reduced cost. Improving energy security and reducing energy bills for people of this province is a commitment of the Government of Saskatchewan. The commitment of the University of Saskatchewan and Sask Polytechnic, along with your international partners, are bringing exactly that research capacity to help our province and our neighbors meet our goals in this field of renewable energy. This is a very exciting development. The strong turnout from Indigenous communities, industry, utilities, government, and NGOs is an indication of how timely this topic is and how there is an appetite for solutions to energy insecurity in most of our remote communities. I welcome everyone to learn, share, discuss, and debate during what is sure to be an engaging day. I know I'm going to learn a lot. I've already heard some interesting stories this morning, and I look forward to the rest of the day. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Lori. Several have mentioned this already, but certainly the events this week and the next couple of days certainly wouldn't have been possible with the support of our sponsors. We've had the United States Consulate for Alberta, the Northwest Territory governments, and Saskatchewan government, and of course Sask Power have all stepped up to make to make today possible. And so we're very thankful for all your help and your commitment. And of course, a big thank you to the U of S and Sask Polytechnic for their support in making this happen. Sask Power in particular has provided seed funding to develop the Consortium for Renewable Energy in remote and Indigenous communities. And they were instrumental in assisting with the planning of this symposium and upcoming workshop. I'd now like to invite Mike Marsh, the Chief Executive Officer of Sask Power, to come up and share with us a few words.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Gary, Elder Morin. Before I begin, I would really like to echo Lori and Irina's concerns for the fire evacuees from Pelican Narrows in northern Saskatchewan, and our thoughts and prayers are with that community for the next few days, and hopefully you can get back to that community soon. Of all the communities in the north, I would have to say I've been to Pelican several times over the past 40 years because I do a lot of canoeing in the north and fishing, and I've been to Pelican many, many times. It's situated on the edge of a lake, and it's a very pretty setting up there, so we hope that community stays intact. On behalf of Sask Power, I would like to welcome you to this important symposium. Last year, Greg Polzer and Toddy Steelman first approached me with the idea to establish a consortium of industry, utility, Indigenous, government, and academic partners to work together on advancing the deployment of renewable energy. The power of this bold and innovative initiative was immediately obvious to me. That is why we are proud to be a major sponsor of this event. This symposium launches a series of discussions and projects through the creation of just such a consortium, with the aim of strengthening and expanding the opportunities for northern, Indigenous, and rural communities to participate in the development of renewable energy projects. We are very pleased that so many industry partners have come from across Canada and around the world to attend this event. And we are very pleased with a number of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit partners whom are engaged in this initiative. It's your commitment that will make this initiative a real success. Sask Power takes its commitments to reduce greenhouse gas emissions very seriously. As many of you know, we have one of the most ambitious targets in North America to increase the renewable portion of our energy production, moving from about 25% today to 50% on a capacity basis by the year 2030. That's no small undertaking. Some view this as an enormous challenge. However, SaskPower views this goal as really the initial step in meeting our greenhouse gas emissions reductions targets, but it's also an unprecedented opportunity. New business and industry are already arriving to make the energy transition a reality here in Saskatchewan, opportunities that will extend to every corner of our province. And for those of you that have come from afar, you know that our province is the most easily recognizable one on the map, right? So we do have 4 corners. There may be opportunities through renewable energy projects to enhance energy access and security for Northern, First Nation, Métis, and Inuit communities. And importantly, having Indigenous businesses and communities participate as independent power producers, creating possibilities for wealth generation and sustainable businesses while addressing climate change. These are exciting times. It's important to recognize, however, that no one group can do this alone. We need to harness the expertise from universities and colleges, from industry and utilities, and from rural, northern, and Indigenous communities from across Canada and from around the world. We need your help. Already the School of Environment and Sustainability here at the U of S and the Alaska Center for Energy Power and the University of Alaska Fairbanks have demonstrated the power of cooperation. Last year, these 2 institutions together produced a pre-feasibility study of the options for deployment of renewable energy at the Peter Ballantine Cree Nation in northern Saskatchewan. This is the type of cooperation and sharing of expertise that will help us make large advances in shorter periods of time. Together, we can learn from others who have pioneered the deployment of renewable energy, especially in remote locations with similar, some would call severe, climatic conditions to Saskatchewan. Along with all of you in attendance today, I'm looking forward to today's presentation and discussions with great enthusiasm. As a company, SaskPower is looking forward to continuing to support the development of this partnership as we collectively strive to enhance energy access and security while meeting the need to address climate change in a new and exciting future. Thank you very much. Enjoy the day. I think it's going to be very, very informative for everybody. We have a great number of panels today, and please ask a lot of questions. That's what we're all here for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. And SaskPower certainly has taken the bull by the horn in this province to make things happen. And they're certainly in the midst of a lot of exciting developments that I've seen, and I'm quite excited for the next little while.